Mira's hands were still covered in the princess's blood when the Alpha King made his decree. She would never leave his territory again. The child had been dying. Mira had known it the moment she'd stumbled upon the massacre in the clearing, her basket of wintergreen and sage tumbling from her grip. 3 guards lay torn apart, their bodies scattered like broken dolls. And there, crumpled against an oak tree, was the little girl, 6 years old, maybe 7, dark hair matted with blood, a gash across her throat that whistled with each shallow breath. Mira should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to disappear back into the forest, to let the royal family deal with their own tragedy. Rogues didn't involve themselves in pack business, especially not in Alpha King business. The penalty for trespassing on royal lands was death. No questions asked, no mercy given. But the child's eyes had opened, wide and brown and terrified, and Mira's feet had carried her forward before her brain could stop them. She dropped to her knees in the blood-soaked grass. Her hands had moved on their own, pressing against the worst of the wounds. The healing magic rose up from somewhere deep in her chest. That strange warmth she'd spent 28 years hiding from the world. It poured through her palms, into the dying child, knitting torn flesh and calling blood back from where it had spilled. The princess had gasped, coughed, lived. That was when the warriors found them, 12 of them, massive and armed, materializing from the trees like vengeful spirits. They'd surrounded her in seconds, silver weapons drawn, growls rumbling from their chests. Mira had raised her bloodied hands in surrender, knowing it wouldn't matter. They'd kill her anyway. But then, one of them had seen the princess breathing, had seen the wounds closing, had barked an order that changed everything. Now, Mira stood in the throne room of the Crystal Palace, still wearing her forest-stained clothes, still carrying the copper smell of blood. The marble floors gleamed beneath her feet. Torches blazed in silver sconces, and on the dais at the far end of the hall sat Alpha King Darius himself. He was everything the rumors claimed, broad-shouldered and brutal, with a scar cutting from his left temple to his jaw. His eyes were the color of winter ice, cold and merciless. He wore his authority like armor, and the power rolling off him made Mira's wolf whimper and cower inside her chest. "Name," he said. His voice was granite and gravel. "Mira." She kept her eyes down, submissive, non-threatening. "No pack name, Your Majesty. I'm Rogue." A ripple went through the assembled court. Rogues were criminals, outcasts, the lowest of the low. They didn't stand before kings. They certainly didn't touch royal children. "How did you do it?" Darius leaned forward in his throne. "My healers examined my daughter. They say she should be dead. The throat wound alone." His jaw tightened. How did a rogue acquire that kind of power? Mira's mouth went dry. The truth would get her killed. Her healing gift wasn't normal, wasn't pack learned. It was something older, something that had appeared when she was 12, and had terrified her mother so badly that the woman had thrown Mira out of their pack before anyone else could discover it. "I learned from my grandmother," she lied, "herbal remedies, and don't." The word cracked like a whip. Darius rose from his throne, descending the dais steps with the fluid grace of a predator. He crossed the space between them in seconds, stopping so close that Mira could smell cedar and steel. "I can hear your heartbeat, little rogue. I know when someone lies to me." She forced herself to meet his eyes. Bad idea. His gaze pinned her in place, and she felt the full weight of his dominance crash down on her shoulders. Her wolf rolled over inside her, throat bared, surrendering. Magic, she whispered. I have healing magic. I was born with it. Silence fell across the throne room. Even the torches seemed to stop crackling. Darius studied her face, his expression unreadable. Healing magic hasn't existed in our kind for 3 generations. The last healer died in the War of Shadows. I know. Mira's voice came out steady, despite the terror clawing at her ribs. That's why I hide. That's why I live alone. People fear what they don't understand. And she swallowed. I just want to survive. You saved my daughter's life. Yes. Do you know what would have happened if you hadn't been there? His voice dropped lower, dangerous. Sarah is my only child, my heir, everything I've built, the peace I've fought for, the territory I've protected. It all depends on her. Mira said nothing. What could she say? Darius turned away from her, pacing toward the windows that overlooked his kingdom. I have enemies, he said quietly. Other packs who want my throne, rogues who raid my borders, and apparently guards incompetent enough to let feral wolves get within striking distance of a princess. He looked back at her. I need someone I can trust to keep Sarah safe. Someone whose gift goes beyond bandages and herbs. Mira's heart sank. She knew what was coming. Your Majesty, I can't. You will. He moved back toward her, each step deliberate. As of this moment, you are the royal healer. You will live in the palace. You will tend to my daughter's recovery and be available for any medical needs within the court. I don't want. What you want is irrelevant. His eyes flashed gold. You saved the life of a princess. That creates a debt, and debts to the crown are paid in service. The words hit her like a physical blow. Service. She'd heard stories about what that meant. Wolves bound to the palace, unable to leave, their freedom stripped away by royal decree. For how long? The question came out barely above a whisper. Darius smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Until I decide you've repaid what you owe, or until you're no longer useful. He gestured, and 2 guards stepped forward. Take her to the healer's quarters. Get her cleaned up and fed. She starts her duties at dawn. The guards moved to either side of her, their hands firm on her arms. Mira wanted to fight, to run, to do anything but accept this cage wrapped in silk and stone. But she was one rogue against an entire kingdom. Fighting would only end one way. As they led her from the throne room, she caught one last glimpse of the Alpha King. He'd already turned away, his attention on an advisor whispering urgent news in his ear. To him, she was a problem solved, a tool acquired. She'd spent her whole life running from packs who would use her, control her, cage her gift for their own purposes. And in the space of one afternoon, saving one child, she'd walked straight into the trap she'd feared most. The palace doors closed behind her with a sound like a vault sealing shut. Her freedom was gone, and the worst part was knowing that she had no one to blame but herself. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The healer's quarters were nicer than anywhere Mira had lived in 15 years. That was the problem. She stood at the window of her new prison, staring out at gardens so perfect they looked painted. 3 rooms, all hers. A bedroom with a 4-poster bed draped in blue silk. A sitting room with chairs soft enough to sink into. A workroom stocked with more herbs and supplies than she'd ever owned. Hot water flowed from actual taps. The fireplace lit itself with a whisper of magic. It was beautiful. It was luxurious. It made her want to scream. "You haven't touched your breakfast." The voice came from the doorway. Lydia, the head housekeeper, a stern woman in her 60s, with silver streaking through her dark hair. She set down a fresh tray of food, eyeing the untouched plate from earlier. "The king expects his staff to maintain their strength." "I'm not staff," Mira said quietly. "I'm a prisoner, with nice furniture." Lydia's expression softened slightly. "You're alive, girl. In this court, that counts for something." She moved to the door, then paused. "The princess will be here within the hour for her examination. Best be ready." Mira nodded, waiting until the woman left before sinking into one of those two soft chairs. 3 days. She'd been here 3 days, and already the palace felt like it was suffocating her. Guards followed her everywhere. For her protection, they claimed, though the silver weapons at their belts told a different story. She wasn't allowed beyond the inner palace grounds, wasn't allowed visitors, not that she had any. Every door that mattered required permission to open. And then there was the Alpha King himself. Darius was everywhere, watching her from across the dining hall during meals she was required to attend, appearing in the medical wing when she treated minor injuries among the staff. Standing in the shadows of corridors, she walked, his ice blue eyes tracking her movements like a wolf studying prey. It should have terrified her. It did terrify her. But there was something else beneath the fear, something she refused to examine too closely. The way her wolf perked up when he entered a room, the way her skin heated under his gaze, the strange pull she felt toward a man who held her life in his hands. Stupid, dangerous, absolutely not happening. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called, expecting Lydia again. Instead, a small whirlwind burst through the door. "Mira!" Princess Sarah rushed across the room and threw her arms around Mira's waist. "I had the most wonderful dream last night. There were butterflies made of moonlight, and they spoke in riddles and—" She pulled back, her brown eyes bright. "Are you ready to check my wounds? Father says I must let you examine them every day until they're completely healed." Mira's heart squeezed. The princess had attached herself like a burr from the moment she'd woken up after the attack. Called Mira my angel, brought her flowers from the garden, chattered constantly about everything and nothing. The child was starved for affection. That much was clear. And Mira, despite every wall she'd built around her heart, couldn't help but care. "Come here, little one." She guided Sarah to the examination table she'd set up in the workroom. "Let's see how you're healing." The wounds were remarkable. Mira ran her hands carefully over the girl's throat, her side, her shoulder, places that had been torn and bleeding just days ago. Now, only faint pink lines remained, and even those were fading. Her magic had done its work well. Too well, perhaps. Normal healing would have left scars. This was something else entirely. "Does it hurt?" Mira asked gently. "Not anymore." Sarah swung her legs, her heels thumping against the table. "Father says you're a miracle. He says the moon goddess herself must have sent you to save me. Your father is kind to say so." "He's not kind." Sarah's voice was matter of fact. "Everyone says so. They say he's hard and cold and scary. But he cries sometimes when he thinks I'm asleep. He goes to Mother's portrait and cries. Mira's hands stilled. The late queen. She'd heard whispers among the servants, quickly hushed when they noticed her listening. Cancer, some said. A wasting sickness. Others claimed poison, assassination, political intrigue. No one seemed to know for certain. I'm sure your father loved your mother very much, Mira said carefully. He did. Sarah's expression turned solemn. Mother was beautiful and kind, and she smelled like roses. Then she got sick, and all the healers came, but none of them could help. She just got weaker and weaker until one day she didn't wake up. The child's voice dropped to a whisper. I was only 1 year old. I don't remember her except in paintings. The door swung open without warning. Mira's head snapped up, and her wolf immediately cowered. Alpha King Darius filled the doorway, his presence sucking the air from the room. He wore training clothes, his shirt damp with sweat, his hair disheveled. He looked like he'd come straight from the sparring grounds, and the raw power rolling off him made every instinct in Mira's body scream at her to bare her throat. Father! Sarah scrambled off the table and ran to him. He caught her easily, swinging her up despite her 6-year-old bulk. How's my warrior princess? His voice, so harsh in the throne room, gentled slightly. Mira says I'm healing perfectly. The scars are almost gone. His eyes shifted to Mira, pinning her in place. Is that true? Yes, Your Majesty. She kept her voice steady. The wounds are closing faster than expected. She'll need a few more days of rest, but there should be no lasting damage. Something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or something darker. Sarah, go with Lydia to your lessons. I need to speak with the healer. But father, now, the single word carried enough command that even the princess didn't argue. She kissed her father's cheek, waved at Mira, and skipped out the door where Lydia waited in the hall. The door closed. Mira was alone with the Alpha King. Darius set Sarah down gently in the hall before turning back to the workroom. His eyes never left Mira's face as he closed the door behind him with a soft click. The room suddenly felt very small. You've been avoiding me, he said. Mira forced herself to stay still, even as her wolf whimpered. I've been doing my job, Your Majesty, treating injuries, organizing the medical supplies, caring for your daughter. You eat in your quarters instead of the dining hall. You take routes through the palace that you know I don't frequent. When I enter a room, you find an excuse to leave. He moved closer, each step deliberate. Why? Because you terrify me. Because I can't think straight when you're near. Because every instinct I have tells me you're dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with your title. I don't want to overstep, she said instead. I'm a rogue in a royal palace. It seemed appropriate to keep my distance. Appropriate. He said the word like it tasted bitter. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could smell him. Cedar and steel, and something wild underneath. Tell me about the elderly servant, Bertram. Mira's stomach dropped. Your Majesty? Yesterday, you treated him for chest pain and fatigue. Within an hour, he was back on his feet. The physician said it was remarkable. His eyes narrowed. What did you do? She'd been careless, so focused on helping the old man who'd been kind to her that she hadn't thought about the implications. I gave him herbs for his heart. Nothing unusual. Liar. He moved closer still, near enough now that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. His symptoms were identical to what my mate experienced in the weeks before she died. Identical, Mira. And you cured him in minutes. Her mouth went dry. I don't know what you. The queen was poisoned. The words came out flat, emotionless, but she could see the rage burning beneath his control. Slowly, over months. By the time we realized what was happening, it was too late. Every healer in the kingdom tried to save her. None of them could even identify the poison, let alone cure it. His hand shot out, gripping her chin, forcing her to look at him. But you did. You cured Bertram of the same symptoms, which means you can identify it. Which means you might have been able to save her. Mira's heart hammered against her ribs. His touch burned, and not just from the anger radiating off him. She could feel his pain like a living thing, 5 years of grief and rage wrapped around his heart. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, I didn't know about the Queen. Bertram's symptoms. I've seen them before, in my travels. I recognized them. From where? She couldn't tell him, wouldn't tell him. A village in the north. Several people fell ill with similar complaints. I learned what herbs would help. His grip tightened slightly. What poison was it? Night bloom root. Rare, expensive, nearly impossible to detect. It mimics heart failure. The words came out before she could stop them. Small doses over time. The victim just seems to waste away. Darius's hand dropped from her face, but he didn't step back. Who would have access to something like that? Someone with money and connections. Someone close enough to dose the victim regularly without suspicion. Mira's mind raced. Someone in the palace. The silence that followed was deafening. She watched emotions flicker across the Alpha King's face. Fury, pain, calculation. When he finally spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. You will tell no one about this conversation. No one, Mira. Do you understand? Yes, Your Majesty. If the poisoner is still in this court, if they discover you can identify their weapon. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I understand. He studied her for a long moment, and she felt the weight of that gaze like a physical touch. You're afraid of me, he said finally. It wasn't a question. Yes. Good. You should be. But something in his expression softened, just slightly. However, you're safer with me than without me. Remember that. He turned to leave, but Mira's voice stopped him. Your Majesty, why were you looking for a healer? Before Sarah's accident, I mean. The court whispers say you've been searching for years. Darius looked back at her, and for just a moment, she saw past the ruthless king to the grieving widower beneath. Because I needed to know the truth about my mate's death, and because, he paused, Sarah has been having episodes. Fatigue, weakness, chest pain. The physicians say it's nothing, but the symptoms are similar to what the queen had. Horror washed through Mira. You think someone is poisoning your daughter. I think someone killed my mate, and maybe trying to kill my heir. And until 3 days ago, I had no way to prove it or stop it. His eyes locked onto hers. Now I have you. The implications settled over her like a shroud. She wasn't just a healer. She was a weapon, a tool to unmask a murderer and protect a princess. The cage she was in had just gotten smaller and infinitely more dangerous. I need to know everything about you, Darius said quietly. Your abilities, your training, your past. Everything, Mira. Because if you're going to keep my daughter alive, I need to trust you completely. Trust. The word was almost funny. He held her captive, demanded her service, threatened her freedom. But she understood what he was really saying. In this palace full of vipers, he was choosing to rely on the rogue healer he barely knew because he was desperate, because he was running out of options, because his daughter's life depended on it. I'll tell you what I can, she said carefully, but some secrets are dangerous, Your Majesty, for both of us. His jaw tightened. We'll start with the safe ones then. Tonight, my private study, after Sarah is asleep. We have planning to do. He left before she could respond, the door closing behind him with a finality that made her stomach knot. Mira sank into a chair, her legs suddenly unsteady. 3 days ago, she'd been a free rogue, living on the fringes of society. Now she was trapped in a palace where someone was systematically murdering the royal family, expected to solve a mystery that had stumped every healer in the kingdom, and being summoned to private meetings with an alpha king whose intensity made her wolf roll over and her traitorous heart beat faster. She'd thought saving the princess would cost her freedom. She'd been wrong. It might cost her life instead. But as she looked around the gilded cage of her quarters, Mira realized something else. The Alpha King wasn't the only one with secrets. Her healing magic was powerful, yes, but it was just the surface of what she could do, what she really was. If Darius discovered the truth about her bloodline, that she wasn't just a rogue with a gift, but the last surviving member of a line that kings had hunted to extinction, it wouldn't be a cage he put her in. It would be a grave. And the worst part? Despite everything, despite the danger and the threats and the impossible situation, some small part of her wanted to trust him, wanted to believe that the man who cried over his mate's portrait and held his daughter with such gentle care might actually protect her instead of destroy her. She'd spent 15 years learning that wanting things was dangerous. Looked like she was about to get a reminder of that lesson. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 3. Mira was in the gardens with Princess Sarah when the delegation arrived. It had become their routine over the past week, an hour each morning among the roses and lavender, where Sarah would chatter about her lessons and Mira would check for any lingering symptoms. The episodes Darius had mentioned hadn't appeared, but Mira remained vigilant. She'd been secretly adding protective herbs to the girl's tea, testing her food before each meal, watching for any sign of the poison that had killed the queen. The nighttime meetings with the Alpha King had become routine too, though those were far less peaceful. Every evening, after Sarah slept, Mira would make her way to Darius's private study. They'd spend hours going over palace records, discussing who had access to the late queen, analyzing the political landscape. He'd questioned her extensively about her abilities, her training, her knowledge of poisons. She'd answered what she could, dancing around the dangerous truths, feeling the tension build between them with each passing night. Because it wasn't just strategy keeping them up until dawn. It was the way his eyes lingered on her face when he thought she wasn't looking, the way her breath caught when he leaned close to point out something in the records, the awareness that hummed between them like a living thing, growing stronger despite every wall she tried to build against it. She'd been alone for so long, and he was grieving, isolated, carrying the weight of a kingdom on his shoulders. It was natural to feel drawn to each other, she told herself. Proximity and shared purpose, nothing more. She was a liar, and they both knew it. Mira, look. Sarah's voice pulled her from her thoughts. The princess held up a butterfly that had landed on her palm, its wings iridescent blue. Isn't it beautiful? Gorgeous. Mira smiled, reaching out to gently touch the creature's wing. That's when she felt it, a presence that made her wolf snarl and her magic recoil, a familiar darkness that she'd spent 5 years running from. No, not here, not now. She grabbed Sarah's hand. Inside. Now. But now, princess. Something in her tone made the girl obey. They hurried across the garden toward the palace entrance, but they were too late. A group of figures emerged from the main hall, foreign wolves in dark formal wear, flanked by Darius's guards, and at the center, wearing a smile that had haunted Mira's nightmares, was Alpha Marcus Blackwood. He was handsome, in the way a viper was beautiful, all elegant lines and cold eyes, tall and lean, with golden hair pulled back in a tail, and features that would have been perfect if not for the cruelty that lurked beneath. He'd aged well in 5 years. Power suited him. His gaze found her across the courtyard, and his smile widened. Mira's heart stopped. Mira? Sarah tugged at her hand. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Stay behind me, Mira whispered. Her mind raced. Run, fight, scream. None of those would work. She was trapped in the palace, surrounded by guards, with a child to protect. Alpha King Darius appeared in the doorway behind the delegation, his expression thunderous. His eyes found Mira, then Marcus, then back to Mira. She saw the calculation there, the questions. Marcus stepped forward, his movements liquid grace. Your Majesty, what a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting to encounter our missing property so quickly. Property. The word made Mira's blood boil. Darius descended the steps, positioning himself between Marcus and Mira with a subtlety that might have looked casual to anyone else. Alpha Marcus, you said nothing about having business with my staff? Because I wasn't certain it was her until just now. Marcus's eyes never left Mira's face. 5 years is a long time. People change. But those eyes? Unmistakable. He addressed Darius, but continued to stare at Mira. The woman standing in your courtyard is a criminal who fled Blackwood territory after murdering 3 of my wolves and stealing artifacts of great value to my pack. The accusation hung in the air like poison. That's a lie. Mira's voice came out steady, despite the terror clawing at her throat. I never murdered anyone. No? Marcus tilted his head. Then explain the bodies found in your family's cottage. Explain the blood on your hands when my warriors discovered you fleeing in the night. Sarah pressed closer to Mira's side. The guards shifted, hands moving to their weapons. And Darius stood perfectly still, but she could feel the rage building in him like a storm about to break. My private study, the Alpha King said quietly. All of us. Now, it wasn't a request. The study felt smaller, with 6 people crammed inside. Darius behind his desk, Marcus and 2 of his warriors on one side, Mira and Captain Thorne on the other. Sarah had been sent away with Lydia, the princess's tearful protests echoing down the hall. Darius leaned back in his chair, his expression carved from ice. Explain. From the beginning, Marcus settled into his seat like he belonged there. 5 years ago, Mira Sterling lived in Blackwood territory with her grandmother. The old woman was known to have minor healing abilities, though nothing remarkable. When she died, Mira's own powers manifested, significant enough that I offered her a position as pack healer, a generous offer for a woman with no family and few prospects. I refused, Mira said flatly, because the position came with strings. She was to be my mate, Marcus continued smoothly, an honor many would have killed for. But Mira had other plans. She wanted her freedom more than security. So, she murdered 3 of my wolves, who came to escort her to the mating ceremony, stole ancient healing texts from our archives, and disappeared. That's not what happened. Mira's hands clenched in her lap. You didn't offer me a position. You ordered me to be your mate. When I refused, her voice caught. You killed my family, my aunt, my uncle, my 2 cousins, slaughtered them in their home as a warning. The 3 wolves who died. They came for me next. I defended myself. Marcus's smile never wavered. An interesting story. Unfortunately, there's no proof beyond your word against mine. And I have documents. He produced a leather folder from his coat. Witness statements from pack members. Records of the stolen texts. Even a warrant issued by the Council of Alphas for her arrest. Darius took the folder, his face unreadable as he scanned the contents. Mira watched his expression, trying to gauge his thoughts, feeling her world tilt dangerously. These appear legitimate, Darius said finally. Because I have resources and connections, Marcus replied. Because I'm an alpha of a recognized pack. And she's a rogue with a convenient story. I'm not lying. Mira turned to Darius, desperate now. You know me. You've spent hours with me, talking, planning. You know I'm not capable of. I know you've been hiding things from me. Darius's voice was cold, and it cut deeper than any blade. Important things. You said yourself that some secrets were too dangerous to share. She had said that, and now those words were weapons turned against her. Marcus leaned forward, sensing victory. I'm not an unreasonable man, Your Majesty. I'm prepared to be generous. Allow me to take the criminal back to Blackwood territory to face justice, and I'll consider our pack's relations strengthened. I might even be willing to discuss a trade agreement that would benefit both our territories. A bribe. He was bribing the Alpha King to hand her over. And if I refuse? Darius asked quietly. Then you'll be harboring a known fugitive in violation of council law. Other alphas might question your judgment, might wonder what else you're hiding behind palace walls. Marcus's tone was pleasant, but the threat was clear. Bad for a king whose mate died under mysterious circumstances, wouldn't you say? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Darius's eyes flashed gold, his Wolfnir roar rising to the surface. Careful, Marcus. You're in my territory now, which is why I'm being so polite. Marcus stood smoothly. I'll give you until tomorrow evening to consider. Review the documents. Verify the facts. You'll see that I'm telling the truth. He glanced at Mira, and something dark flickered in his expression. Unless, of course, she's already wormed her way into your confidence with her unique talents. Healers can be very persuasive when they want to be. The insinuation was clear. Disgusting. Darius rose slowly from his chair, every inch the predator. You will return to your guest quarters and remain there until I summon you. Captain Thorne will escort you. It was a dismissal delivered with enough authority that even Marcus didn't argue. He bowed slightly, shot Mira one last meaningful look, and left with his warriors and the captain. The door closed. Mira was alone with Darius. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Mira could feel him watching her, could sense the questions building. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully neutral. Tell me the truth. All of it. I did. Marcus killed my family because I refused to be his mate and his personal healer. He wanted to use my abilities for his pack, for his own gain. When I fought back, he manufactured evidence to make me look like a criminal. She stood, her legs unsteady. The texts he claims I stole? They were my grandmother's journals, family records. He took them from our cottage after the massacre. Why does he want you so badly? Darius moved around the desk, closing the distance between them. Healers are valuable? Yes, but this is excessive. He's crossed pack territories, brought forged documents, risked insulting me in my own palace. Why, Mira? This was it. The moment she'd been dreading. She could lie, could keep her secrets buried, could try to maintain the fragile safety she'd found here. But Marcus had found her, which meant he'd learned something, discovered something, and he wouldn't stop until he had what he wanted. Because I'm not just a healer, she whispered. I'm something else, something that was supposed to be extinct. Darius went very still. Explain. My grandmother told me stories when I was young, about our bloodline, about why we had to hide. I thought they were fairy tales until my powers manifested. Mira wrapped her arms around herself. We're descended from the Moon Blessed, an ancient line of healers who could do more than cure wounds and illness. We could manipulate life itself. That's impossible. The Moon Blessed died out centuries ago, during the Purge. Most of them did, but a few survived, went into hiding, scattered across territories, bred their gifts down to almost nothing. She met his eyes. Until me. Until the power resurfaced, strong enough to. She stopped, unsure how to continue. Strong enough to what? His voice was dangerously quiet. To break mate bonds. To sever the connection between marked pairs. The words came out in a rush. To heal wounds that should be fatal. To even. She swallowed hard. To bring back the recently dead. If their soul hasn't passed beyond the veil yet. The silence that followed was deafening. Darius stared at her, like she'd grown a second head. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Resurrection. Only if they died within the last few hours. Only if the body isn't too damaged. And it comes at a terrible cost. It takes years off my own life every time. She laughed bitterly. That's why the Moon Blessed were hunted to extinction. Too powerful. Too dangerous. Kings and alphas couldn't control them, so they killed them all. Darius turned away, pacing to the window. She could see his mind working, processing, calculating. Marcus knows about this, about what you can do. He must have found my grandmother's journals, decoded them somehow. If he's discovered what I really am, she felt sick. He'll want to use me, to make himself invincible. If I can bring back the recently dead, I could keep him alive indefinitely. He'd be unkillable. Which is why he needs you alive, and under his control. Darius's jaw tightened. The documents, the warrant, the witnesses, all of it designed to give him legal claim to you. Yes. And if I refuse to hand you over, he'll find another way. He's patient. He's been hunting me for 5 years, and he finally tracked me down. He won't give up now. Mira moved closer, desperate. But I can help you. I meant what I said about your mate. I've been reviewing records, analyzing the symptoms, and I think I know who poisoned her. That got his attention. He turned back to face her, his expression fierce. Who? I need more proof before I accuse anyone. But if you give me time, if you protect me from Marcus, I swear I'll find the truth. About the Queen, about whoever might be targeting Sarah. I'll use everything I am, everything I can do, to keep your daughter safe. You're offering me a bargain. I'm offering you the truth. And my loyalty. Real loyalty. Not the forced servitude you demanded when I first arrived. She stepped closer still, near enough to feel the heat radiating off him. I know what it's like to lose family to violence. I know what it's like to hunt for justice and find only shadows. Let me help you, please. Darius studied her face for a long moment, and she could see the war playing out behind his eyes. Trust versus suspicion, need versus pride, the practical benefits of keeping her versus the political cost of defying Marcus and the council. If I protect you, he said slowly, Marcus will be furious. He'll push the council to intervene. I'll be harboring a fugitive, risking political relationships, potentially starting a conflict between packs. I know. My court will question my judgment. They'll say you've manipulated me, used your powers to cloud my mind. I know. And if you're lying, if any of this is a deception, I will destroy you myself, slowly. Do you understand? Yes. Her voice didn't waver. He moved closer, so close now that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Why should I believe you? Why should I risk everything on the word of a rogue who admits she's been hiding the truth since the moment she arrived? Because Sarah calls me her angel. Because you've seen what I can do, how I've cared for her. Because deep down, beneath all your suspicion and control, you know I'm not lying. She lifted her chin. And because you're running out of time, whoever killed your mate is still here, still free, possibly still poisoning your daughter. You need me, Darius. You might not want to, but you do. Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. He reached out slowly, his hand cupping her jaw in a gesture that was both possessive and oddly gentle. If I do this, he said quietly, you belong to me. Not as a prisoner, but as Pack, under my protection, bound by my authority. You follow my orders, you answer my questions, you hide nothing from me. Ever. It was a cage of a different kind, but it was also safety, security, a chance to finally stop running, and maybe, whispered a traitorous part of her heart, a chance for something more. I accept, she whispered. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and she felt the gesture like a brand. Then we have a deal, little healer. I'll protect you from Marcus and anyone else who tries to take you, and you'll help me find the truth about my mate's death and keep my daughter safe. And after, the question slipped out before she could stop it. After we find the killer, after Marcus gives up or is dealt with, what happens to me then? Darius's expression was unreadable. We'll see if you survive that long. It should have been threatening. Instead, it felt like a promise. He released her and stepped back, the Alpha King mask sliding back into place. Return to your quarters. Don't leave them unless I or Captain Thorne escorts you. Marcus and his wolves are not to come within 50 feet of you. I'll inform the guards. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He moved back to his desk, already reaching for documents. Marcus won't accept a simple refusal. He'll push, he'll threaten, he'll look for leverage, which means we need to move faster on finding your proof about the Queen. How long do you need? A few days. Maybe less if I can access the medical records from 5 years ago. I'll have them brought to your workroom. He glanced up, and for just a moment, she saw past the cold exterior to the man beneath, grieving, determined, and desperately trying to protect what little family he had left. Find me the truth, Mira. Find me the person who killed my mate, and I promise you, Marcus will be the least of their worries. She nodded and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her at the door. Mira? Yes, for what it's worth. I believe you. About your family, about Marcus, about all of it. His eyes met hers across the room. I've spent too many nights watching you work, listening to you talk, seeing how you are with Sarah. You're many things, but you're not a murderer, and you're not a liar, despite the secrets you've kept. The words settled around her heart like a warm blanket. How can you be so sure? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Because I recognize someone who's running from their past when I see one. It takes one to know one. Then he dismissed her with a wave, returning his attention to the papers on his desk, and Mira slipped out into the corridor with her heart hammering and her mind racing. She'd made a bargain with the Alpha King, offered him everything in exchange for protection and a chance at justice. It was reckless and dangerous and possibly the stupidest thing she'd ever done. But as she made her way back to her quarters, with guards flanking her, passing windows that overlooked gardens she could no longer walk freely in, she realized something. For the first time in 5 years, she wasn't alone. And if that meant facing Marcus, uncovering a murderer, and risking everything she was, well, she'd been running long enough. It was time to fight back. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. The political fallout was immediate and brutal. Within hours of Darius's refusal to extradite Mira, messages began flooding in from the Council of Alphas. Some demanded explanations, others threatened sanctions. Alpha Marcus sent 3 formal letters, each more venomous than the last, promising that harboring a fugitive would have consequences. The Crystal Palace wouldn't soon forget. Darius burned them all. The northern territories are threatening to withhold their grain shipments, Captain Thorne reported during the emergency council meeting. The western pacts are questioning whether they should honor our alliance treaties, and Marcus is calling for a council vote to censure you for violating pact law. Let them vote. Darius stood at the window of the council chamber, his back to the assembled advisors. I don't answer to Marcus Blackwood or any alpha who thinks he can dictate policy in my territory. Your Majesty, with respect. This from Lord Chancellor Brennan, an older wolf with silver hair and cautious eyes. We must consider the broader implications. If the Council turns against us, we could face trade embargoes, diplomatic isolation, even military threats. Is one rogue healer worth that risk? Mira sat in the corner of the room where Darius had insisted she attend. Every eye turned toward her, some curious, most hostile. She'd been the subject of whispered conversations all day, servants and courtiers speculating about why the Alpha King would risk so much for someone like her. The healer saved my daughter's life, Darius said coldly, still not turning around. That alone makes her worth protecting. But beyond that, she has knowledge and abilities this court needs. The discussion is over. But, Your Majesty, over. He finally turned, and the authority in his gaze made even the Chancellor fall silent. Lady Mira will be staying in the palace. Anyone who has a problem with that decision is welcome to submit their resignation. Are we clear? Murmured assents rippled through the room. Mira noticed several advisors exchanging glances, the kind of looks that promised future plotting. She'd made enemies today, simply by existing. There is one practical concern, spoke up Beta Garrett, a massive man with kind eyes and graying temples. His mate, Lady Cordelia, sat beside him, elegant and beautiful, with auburn hair and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. If Marcus is calling for censure, he might push for more aggressive action. We should consider increased security measures. Already done, Darius replied. I'm moving Lady Mira into the private wing, where she'll have round-the-clock protection from my personal guard. The private wing, where only the royal family and their most trusted staff resided. The announcement sent another wave of whispers through the council. Cordelia's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. How progressive of you, Your Majesty. I'm sure the court will understand your concern for her safety. The insinuation was clear. Mira felt her cheeks heat, but Darius's expression didn't change. The court will understand that I protect those under my authority. This meeting is adjourned. He swept from the chamber without waiting for a response, and Mira hurried after him, acutely aware of the eyes following her departure. The private wing was a world apart from her previous quarters. Where the healers' rooms had been comfortable, these were luxurious beyond measure. Her new suite connected to Darius's chambers through a shared sitting room, and the implications of that proximity made her wolf pace restlessly beneath her skin. You'll be safe here, Darius said, watching as servants unpacked her meager belongings. My guards are loyal, trained, and will die before they let anyone harm you. You didn't have to do this. Mira turned to face him, aware they were alone now that the servants had left. The political cost was necessary. He moved closer, and she felt that pull again, that magnetic attraction that had been building between them for days. Marcus won't give up easily. Neither will whoever poisoned my mate. Having you close means I can protect you better. Or it means you're putting yourself and Sarah at greater risk by association. Let me worry about that. His hand lifted, almost touching her face, before he caught himself and dropped it. Have you made progress on the medical records? She had. She'd spent every spare moment analyzing the Queen's files, comparing symptoms, tracking the progression of her illness, and what she'd found had kept her up all night, sick with the implications. I need to show you something. She moved to the desk, where she'd spread out papers and notes. The poison that killed your mate, nightbloom root. It's rare for a reason. It's specifically lethal to wolves with latent healing abilities. Darius went still. Explain. Most wolves don't have any healing gift at all, but some bloodlines carry dormant potential, genes that might manifest as minor abilities or might never show up. The Queen, she pulled out a genealogy chart she'd compiled. Her family tree shows markers consistent with diluted moon, blessed heritage, very diluted, generations removed, but it was there. You're saying my mate was part of your bloodline? Distantly. She probably never knew. The abilities were too weak to manifest, buried under centuries of breeding with non-gifted wolves. Mira met his eyes, but the poison recognized it anyway. Night bloom root is harmless to ordinary wolves. It only becomes deadly when it interacts with healing magic in the bloodstream, even dormant magic. She watched the realization hit him, saw his expression shift from confusion to understanding to something that looked almost like pain. That's why he stopped, started again. When I met her, my wolf reacted strongly. I thought it was just attraction, chemistry. But you're saying your wolf recognized the bloodline. Not a mate bond exactly, but something close. An echo of what could have been if the gifts had been stronger. Mira's throat tightened. I'm sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear. And you? His voice was rough. What does my wolf recognize in you? The question hung between them, dangerous and electric. Mira felt the bond thrumming under her skin, the connection she'd been fighting since the first moment she'd seen him. It terrified her, because if they completed the bond, if she let herself fall into this thing building between them, her abilities could be used against him, could be used to break them apart. I don't know, she lied. His eyes said he knew she was lying, but he didn't push. What else did you find? Sarah. The name came out barely above a whisper. She inherited more of the bloodline than her mother had. The healing potential in her is stronger, which means the poison will work faster on her. Darius's face went pale. How much time does she have? I don't know. I've been treating her preventatively, but if someone's still administering the poison. Mira pulled out another set of notes. I've been analyzing everyone who had access to the Queen 5 years ago and comparing it to who has access to Sarah now. There's overlap, but it's extensive. Kitchen staff, servants, tutors, guards. Narrow it down. I'm trying, but I need to know who had both motive and opportunity. Who benefits from the royal line dying out? Darius was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. Beta Garrett's son, Thomas. He's 12 now, old enough to rule with a regent if something happened to Sarah. If both my daughter and I were gone, the Beta's family could claim the throne. Mira's stomach sank. Garrett has served you for how long? 20 years, since before I became king. He's my oldest friend, my most trusted advisor. Darius moved to the window, his shoulders tight. But Cordelia, she married into the position 15 years ago. She's ambitious, always has been. Would she kill for it? I don't know. He sounded tired suddenly, worn down by betrayal and suspicion. I don't know who to trust anymore. Except, he turned back to her. Except you, which is insane, considering we met less than 2 weeks ago. But you're the only person in this palace who has nothing to gain from my death or Sarah's. I have everything to gain, Mira said softly. If you die, there's no one to protect me from Marcus. My survival depends on yours. Then we both have incentive to keep each other alive. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Convenient. A knock at the door interrupted them. Captain Thorne entered, his expression grim. Your Majesty, there's been an incident. Princess Sarah collapsed during her afternoon lessons. She's in her chambers now, unconscious. Mira's blood turned to ice. When? 10 minutes ago. The healers are with her. But, he glanced at Mira. They said you should come. Quickly, they ran. Sarah's room was chaos. 2 palace healers hovered over the bed, where the princess lay limp and pale, her breathing shallow. Servants clustered near the door, whispering frantically, and standing by the window her face a mask of concern, was Lady Cordelia. What happened? Darius demanded, pushing through to his daughter's side. I don't know, Your Majesty. One of the healers, an older woman named Marta, wrung her hands. She was fine during lessons, then suddenly complained of chest pain and fatigue. She fainted before we could even. Mira was already at the bedside, her hands on Sarah's wrist, feeling for a pulse. It was there but weak, fluttering like a trapped bird. She pulled back the girl's eyelids, pupils dilated, unresponsive. The same symptoms, exactly the same. Everyone out, Mira ordered. Now, you can't just. Marta started to protest. Out! Darius's command left no room for argument. The healers retreated, taking the servants with them. Only Darius, Mira, Captain Thorne, and Cordelia remained. Mira bent over Sarah, letting her magic rise. She could feel the poison in the girl's system, could sense it attacking the latent healing abilities in her blood. It was recent, within the last hour, which meant whoever had administered it was still close. What did she eat today? Mira asked, not looking up. Breakfast in the nursery, lessons until midday, then afternoon tea in the garden. Cordelia's voice was smooth, helpful. I was with her for the tea, just the two of us. I thought she seemed pale, but I assumed it was fatigue from her studies. Something about the way she said it made Mira's instincts scream. She looked up sharply, catching the other woman's gaze. Cordelia's expression was perfect. Concerned, maternal, appropriate, too perfect. What did you give her for tea? Mira asked carefully. The usual. Chamomile and honey. Some small cakes from the kitchen. Cordelia tilted her head. Why? Surely you don't think. I think someone poisoned the princess within the last hour. Mira kept her voice level. And I think whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. The dose was precise, calculated to incapacitate without killing immediately. Darius's head snapped up. You're saying this was intentional? Recent? Yes. Mira's hands moved over Sarah's body, her magic probing, searching. And I can heal her. But I need to work quickly. Your Majesty, I need everyone to step back. I'm not leaving my daughter. Then stay. But don't interfere. She looked at Cordelia. My lady, perhaps you should wait outside. This can be disturbing to watch. I insist on staying. Cordelia moved closer. The princess is dear to me. I want to help however I can. Liar. Mira's instincts screamed. But she couldn't prove it. Not yet. She turned her attention back to Sarah, letting her healing magic pour into the child. It was different from healing injuries. This required her to hunt down the poison molecule by molecule, to coax it from Sarah's blood and neutralize it before it could do more damage. It took concentration, power, and time they might not have. Her magic flowed through Sarah's small body, following the poison's trail, and as it did, Mira felt something else, a residue, a signature that shouldn't be there, magic that wasn't hers, wasn't Sarah's, wasn't natural. Someone had laced the poison with a trace spell, a marker that would let them track exactly when and how it took effect. And Mira recognized the signature. She'd felt it before, years ago, in Marcus's territory. It was his pack's magic, their unique blend of power and cruelty. Her eyes snapped to Cordelia, and she saw the truth written in the woman's satisfied smile. You. The word came out as an accusation. You're working with Marcus. The mask dropped. Cordelia's expression shifted from concern to cold calculation in an instant. Clever girl. I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out. Darius lunged for her, but Cordelia was faster. She pulled a small vial from her sleeve and threw it at the floor. It shattered, releasing a cloud of silver smoke, wolfsbane gas, potent and paralyzing. The Alpha King staggered, his wolf recoiling from the poison. Captain Thorne drew his weapon, but was already coughing, his eyes watering, and Mira, bent over Sarah, felt the gas burn her lungs, but couldn't stop healing long enough to protect herself. Such drama, Cordelia said, her voice muffled as she pulled a cloth over her nose and mouth. You forced my hand, you know. I was content to let the princess die slowly, to make it look like the same mysterious illness that took her mother. But then you arrived and complicated everything. Why? Darius's voice was a growl, his eyes gold and furious, even as he fought to stay conscious. You had everything: position, wealth, respect. My son should be heir to this throne, not some little girl who inherited power she doesn't understand. Cordelia moved toward the door. Marcus offered me a deal. Help him acquire you, Mira, and he'd ensure my family's rise to power. All I had to do was keep poisoning the royal bloodline until there was no one left to challenge us. The Queen, Mira gasped, her vision swimming. You killed her. I did. And it was almost perfect until you showed up with your inconvenient gifts. Cordelia opened the door, and Mira saw shadows moving in the hallway. Marcus's warriors, ready and waiting. Don't bother trying to follow. By the time you recover from the wolfsbane, we'll be long gone, and we'll have the princess with us. No. Darius tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't support him. Cordelia, don't do this. Please. Goodbye, Your Majesty. Give my regards to your mate when you see her in the afterlife. Cordelia gestured, and two warriors entered the room. One grabbed the unconscious Sarah from the bed, while the other held a silver blade to Mira's throat. The healer comes with us, the warrior said. Marcus's orders. Mira's magic was still pouring into Sarah, still fighting the poison. If she stopped now, the girl would die. But if she let them take her, if she went with Marcus. Darius's eyes met hers across the room, and she saw the desperation there, the impossible choice he faced. Save his daughter or save her. He couldn't do both. Go, Mira whispered. Take Sarah. I'll figure something out. Like hell. Darius forced himself to his hands and knees, crawling toward them despite the wolfsbane in his system. You don't touch her. Either of them. Touching. The warrior's blade pressed harder against Mira's throat, drawing blood. We're doing more than touching. We're taking. Unless you want to watch your healer die, right here, right now, you'll stay down. Mira felt her magic complete its work. The poison was neutralized. Sarah would survive. But now the warriors were pulling her away from the princess, dragging her toward the door, and she could see more of Marcus's wolves in the corridor. She'd made her choice when she'd saved Sarah the first time, when she'd stepped into this palace and decided that maybe, just maybe, there was something worth fighting for beyond mere survival, and she was making it again now. Her magic surged, not for healing this time, but for something darker, something she'd sworn never to use. The power thrummed through her veins, ancient and terrible, and she felt it respond to her desperation. Life magic could create, but it could also destroy. I'm sorry, she whispered, not sure if she was talking to Darius or herself. Then she released the power. The warrior holding her screamed as his life force was ripped from his body. It wasn't healing. It was the opposite. draining him in seconds, leaving him a withered husk that collapsed at her feet. The other warrior stumbled back, terror in his eyes, and Mira turned that terrible power on him too. But using it cost her. She felt years drain from her own life, felt her strength hemorrhaging away. Worth it, she thought distantly, as long as Sarah was safe, as long as Darius lived. Cordelia ran. The remaining warriors fled after her, their courage broken by what they'd witnessed, and Mira fell to her knees beside the two corpses she'd created, horrified by what she'd done, by what she'd become. Darius crawled to her, the wolfsbane finally releasing its grip. He pulled her into his arms, and she felt him shaking, from rage or fear or relief. She couldn't tell. They took Sarah, he said hoarsely. While we were fighting, someone else grabbed her. They took my daughter. Mira's heart shattered. All of it. The violence, the sacrifice, the terrible use of her power. And they'd still failed. Marcus has her, she whispered. He'll use her as leverage to force me to submit, to come to him willingly. Then we get her back. Darius pulled away enough to look at her face, and she saw the Alpha King there, cold and furious and absolutely lethal. We hunt them down. We kill everyone who helped them, and we bring my daughter home. They're expecting that. They'll be ready. I don't care. His hands cupped her face, and she felt the mate bond flare between them, undeniable now. You're mine, Mira. She's mine. And no one, not Marcus, not Cordelia, not the entire damned council, takes what's mine and lives. She should run, should disappear into the night while she had the chance. Let him handle this himself. It was the smart choice, the safe choice. But safety had never been an option, had it? Not since the moment she'd chosen to save a dying princess in a blood-soaked clearing. Then we go together, she said, and we end this, all of it. His eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to meet hers. Together. The word felt like a vow, like a promise written in blood and magic and desperation, like the beginning of something that would either save them both or destroy them completely. Outside the window, the sun was setting over the Crystal Palace, painting the sky in shades of crimson, and somewhere in the darkness beyond, Marcus Blackwood waited with a stolen princess and a smile full of knives. The hunt was on, and Mira had finally stopped running. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 5. They rode through the night like vengeance incarnate. Darius had assembled his fastest warriors, 20 wolves who'd proven their loyalty in blood and battle. Captain Thorn led the vanguard, his face grim and determined. Behind them rode the palace guards, who'd served the royal family for decades, armed with silver and fury. And beside the Alpha King, matching him stride for stride, rode Mira. She'd refused to stay behind, had looked Darius in the eye, and told him that if he tried to leave her, she'd follow anyway. So he'd given her armor, supple leather that moved like a second skin, and a dagger made of blessed silver. She had no idea how to use it, but the weight at her hip was reassuring. How far? She asked, her voice barely carrying over the thunder of hooves. Marcus's territory borders ours to the east. If they're riding hard, they could reach his fortress by dawn. Darius's jaw was tight, his eyes fixed on the horizon. We're 2 hours behind them, maybe less if they stopped to rest. They wouldn't stop. Marcus was too smart for that. He'd push through until he reached safe ground, where his warriors outnumbered anything Darius could bring against him. Mira's mind raced, analyzing possibilities, calculating risks. Marcus wanted her alive and compliant. Sarah was a leverage, a hostage to ensure cooperation, which meant he'd keep the princess alive, for now. But if he'd dosed her with more poison, if the night bloom root was still working through her system, we'll get her back, Darius said, as if reading her thoughts. Whatever it takes, whatever it takes. The words echoed ominously in Mira's head, because she knew what it would take, knew what Marcus would demand. Her, broken and bound, a tool for him to use, a power he could wield like a weapon. She'd die before she let that happen, but she'd save Sarah first. They caught up to Marcus's party an hour before dawn in a stretch of forest that marked the boundary between territories. The enemy wolves had stopped to water their horses at a stream, confident in their head start. They shouldn't have stopped. Darius's warriors struck like lightning, fast, brutal, coordinated. Silver flashed in the pre-dawn light. Wolves shifted mid-stride, teeth and claws replacing weapons. The clearing erupted into chaos, blood and violence painting the grass red. Mira stayed back as ordered, protected by two guards while she searched frantically for Sarah. There, in a wagon at the edge of the camp, surrounded by four of Marcus's largest warriors, she could see the princess's dark hair through the bars, could hear her weak cries. There, Mira pointed, and her guards moved with her, cutting a path through the fighting. They were 10 feet away when Marcus himself appeared, stepping from the shadows with that cold smile she remembered too well. Hello, Mira. I've been expecting you. He moved faster than thought, his hand closing around her throat before her guards could react. She felt his claws pierce her skin, felt his power crash over her like a wave. Behind him, his warriors cut down her protectors with ruthless efficiency. Call off your king, Marcus said pleasantly, or I snap your neck right here. Across the clearing, Darius was fighting 3 wolves at once, his movements savage and precise. He looked up at Marcus's words, and Mira saw the calculation in his eyes, saw him weighing options, considering strategies, saw him start to yield. No, Mira choked out. Don't stop. Get Sarah. Marcus's grip tightened. Brave. Stupid. But brave. He raised his voice. Darius, your healer's life for my safe passage back to my territory. That's the deal. Accept it, or watch her die. Darius had gone still, his wolf's eyes fixed on Mira. Around him, the fighting continued, but she could feel his focus entirely on her, on the choice he had to make. Let me sweeten the offer, Marcus continued. I have your daughter in that wagon. She's alive, but barely. The poison I gave her this morning is working nicely. In another hour, maybe 2, her heart will stop. He smiled. But Mira can save her. Can't you, little healer? You have the power to bring back the recently dead, to reverse even the most potent poison. Don't listen to him, Mira gasped. Oh, but you should. Marcus's breath was hot against her ear. Because I've done my research. I know exactly how your resurrection magic works. It's not just healing, it's a transference. You pour your own life force into the dying, bind yourself to them on a level deeper than blood or bone. And once that bond is forged, it can never be broken. The person you save owns you, body and soul. They become your master in every sense that matters. Horror crashed through Mira. He knew. He'd figured out the darkest secret of her bloodline, the one even her grandmother had barely spoken of. That's why you want me to save Sarah, she whispered. If I resurrect her, I'll be bound to her forever, bound to serve, to obey, to, to never leave her side, to prioritize her life above all others, including your own. Marcus's smile widened. And since Sarah is a child who will need a regent, who will make decisions on her behalf until she comes of age, well, that regent would effectively control you too. Darius had heard every word. She could see the understanding dawning on his face, the terrible trap Marcus had laid. You become regent, Darius said flatly. That's your play. You kidnap my daughter, poison her, and force Mira to create a life debt bond that makes Sarah, and by extension you, her master. You get everything. Control of the healer, political leverage over my kingdom, and a hostage I can never afford to lose. Brilliant, isn't it? Marcus looked genuinely pleased with himself. And the best part? You can't stop me. If you kill me, the princess dies from the poison. If you refuse to let Mira save her, she dies anyway. Your only option is to accept my terms and hope I'm feeling generous about the political arrangements. There's always another option, Darius said quietly. He moved so fast, Mira almost missed it. One moment he was across the clearing, the next he was on Marcus, his claws ripping into the other alpha's side. Marcus released Mira with a snarl, spinning to meet Darius's attack. Get Sarah, Darius roared. Now. Mira stumbled toward the wagon, her throat burning where Marcus had held her. The four guards stepped forward to block her path, but Captain Thorne appeared like an avenging angel, his sword singing through the air. Two guards fell. The other two shifted and lunged. Mira didn't wait to see the outcome. She reached the wagon, her fingers fumbling with the lock. Inside, Sarah lay on straw bedding, her skin pale as death, her breathing shallow and labored. Mira? The princess's eyes fluttered open. I'm cold. I know, sweetheart. I'm going to fix it. Mira climbed into the wagon, her hands already glowing with magic. She could feel the poison in Sarah's system, more than before, a massive dose designed to kill within hours. The child was dying, would be dead soon if Mira didn't act. But if she used her resurrection magic, if she created that life debt bond, she'd be enslaved. Forever. The mate, bond forming with Darius, would be severed, overridden by the deeper magic. She'd spend the rest of her life bound to serve Sarah, unable to leave, unable to choose, unable to love anyone more than the child she'd saved. It was the ultimate prison, and Marcus would control the key. Behind her, she heard Darius and Marcus still fighting, heard the sounds of combat continuing throughout the camp. Captain Thorne appeared at the wagon's entrance, blood on his armor. Lady Mira, we need to move. More of his wolves are coming. I need time. Her magic poured into Sarah, fighting the poison, but there was too much. The child's heart was already struggling, her breath coming in gasps. We don't have time. Sarah's hand found Mira's, small and cold. Am I dying? The question broke something in Mira's chest. Not if I can help it. Will it hurt? No, baby. You won't feel anything. Except Mira would feel everything, would feel her freedom die, her future with Darius disappear, her soul bind itself in chains she could never break. But Sarah would live. This innocent child who called her angel, who'd done nothing wrong, who deserved a chance to grow up, she would live. Wasn't that worth any price? Mira closed her eyes and reached for the deepest well of her power, the magic that could reverse death itself. She felt it rising, ancient and terrible, felt it ready to pour into Sarah and forge the bond that would enslave them both. Stop! Darius stood at the wagon's entrance, his armor torn and bloody, his eyes blazing gold. Behind him, Mira could see Marcus on the ground, injured but not dead, held at sword point by 3 warriors. You can't do this, Darius said hoarsely. I won't let you sacrifice yourself like this. She's dying. I have to. No. He climbed into the wagon, his movements deliberate, despite his injuries. There's another way. There has to be. There isn't. Marcus was right. The resurrection magic creates a life debt. Once I forge it, I'm bound forever. But if I don't, her voice broke. I can't let her die, Darius. I can't. He knelt beside her, his hand covering hers where it rested on Sarah's chest. Then take mine, instead. Mira's breath stopped. What? My life force. Use it to save her. Bind yourself to me, not to Sarah. His eyes met hers, and she saw absolute certainty there. If the magic requires a life debt, let it be between us. I'm her father. I should be the one to pay the price. You don't understand. The bond doesn't work like that. I can't choose who to bind to. The magic bonds me to whoever I save, whoever receives my power. Then save me too. His hand pressed hers, harder against Sarah's chest. Use my life force as the channel. Pour your power through me, into her. That way, you're saving both of us, binding yourself to both of us. And if you're bound to me as much as you're bound to her, the bonds might cancel each other out, or share the weight. Mira's mind raced through the implications. It's never been done. I don't know if it will work. It'll work. He said it with complete confidence, because I'm not letting you go. Not to Marcus, not to a curse, not to anything. You're mine, Mira, and I'm yours. That has to count for something. Around them, the world seemed to fade away. There was only Darius's hand on hers, Sarah's failing heartbeat beneath both their palms, and the magic thrumming between all 3 of them, like a living thing. If this goes wrong, Mira whispered, if the magic doesn't work the way you think, you could die. Both of you could die, and I'd be left with nothing. Then we die together, as a family. He leaned forward, his forehead touching hers. I trust you, Mira. I love you. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Love. He'd said it. The word hung in the air between them, precious and terrifying. Sarah gasped, her body convulsing. They were out of time. Mira made her choice. She pulled Darius's hand fully onto Sarah's chest, positioning it over the child's heart. Then she placed her other hand on Darius's chest, feeling his heart beating strong and steady beneath her palm, creating a circuit. 3 hearts connected by touch and magic and desperate hope. Don't let go, she whispered. Never. Mira released the power. It exploded from her in a wave that shook the wagon, that made the air crackle with energy. Her magic poured into Darius first, flooding through him in a rush of heat and light. She felt his life force surge to meet hers, felt his strength and determination and love amplifying her power. Then together, their magic combined, unified, merged into something stronger than either alone. They poured into Sarah. The child's body arched, her eyes flying open, her mouth gasping. The poison burned away like mist before sunlight. The damage to her heart reversed, tissue knitting, strength returning. Color flooded back into her cheeks, breath filling her lungs. But the magic didn't stop there. It circled back through all three of them, creating a loop, a bond that connected them in ways Mira had never imagined possible. She felt Sarah's relief and confusion, felt Darius's fierce, protective love, felt her own power weaving them together. The life debt tried to form, tried to bind Mira to Sarah in servitude, but Darius's presence disrupted it, his own bond with his daughter interfering with the magic's normal pattern. And beneath it all, deeper and stronger, the mate bond between Mira and Darius blazed to life, not severed by the life debt, but reinforced by it. The magic couldn't choose, couldn't decide whether to bind Mira to the child she'd saved or the man she loved. So it did both. And in doing both, it created something unprecedented, a family bond, not servitude, not ownership, but connection, love made manifest in magic, tying them together not as master and servant, but as parent and child, as mates, as pack. The power peaked, blazing white hot, and Mira screamed as she felt it burn through her, not in pain, but in transformation. Every cell in her body was being rewritten, every magical pathway being scorched clean. When the light faded, she collapsed against Darius, gasping. Sarah sat up, blinking in confusion. What happened? I feel strange. You're alive. Darius pulled his daughter into a fierce hug, his eyes squeezing shut. You're alive. Thank the moon. Mira tried to reach for her magic, to check Sarah more thoroughly, to make sure the healing had taken nothing. She reached again, searching for the familiar warmth of her power, the healing energy that had been part of her for 16 years. Gone, all of it. Burned away by the resurrection magic, consumed by the massive working she'd just performed. Horror and relief crashed through her in equal measure. She was ordinary, powerless, human in all the ways that mattered. Free. Mira? Darius was looking at her with concern. What's wrong? My magic. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. It's gone. I used too much, pushed too hard. I can't feel it anymore. She expected devastation, expected to feel hollow, diminished, less than she'd been. Instead, she felt light, like chains she'd carried for so long had finally broken. Can you get it back? Sarah asked, her young face worried. I don't know. Maybe, or maybe not. Mira touched the child's cheek gently. But you're alive. That's what matters. Lady Mira. Captain Thorne appeared at the wagon entrance again. We need your decision about the prisoner. What do we do with Marcus? Marcus. In the chaos and magic, she'd almost forgotten about him. Mira climbed out of the wagon on shaky legs, Darius supporting her. Across the clearing, Marcus knelt in the dirt, surrounded by warriors with silver pointed at his heart. Blood soaked his side where Darius had clawed him, and fury burned in his eyes. You should have accepted my deal, he snarled at Mira. Now you have nothing. No power, no leverage. No, she has everything. Darius stepped forward, positioning himself between Marcus and Mira. She has my protection, my pack, my throne. She's my mate and will be my queen. And you? His voice dropped to a growl. You kidnapped my daughter, poisoned her, conspired with a traitor to murder my bloodline. The penalty for those crimes is death. The council won't stand for it. You can't execute a visiting alpha without. You forfeited your protections the moment you violated guest rights and stole a princess. Darius's eyes flashed gold. Captain Thorne, carry out the sentence. Thorne's sword flashed once. Marcus's head hit the ground, his body following a moment later. Mira felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The man who'd murdered her family, who'd hunted her for 5 years, who'd tried to enslave her, he was finally gone. It's over, Darius said quietly, pulling her close. It's finally over. But even as he said it, even as his warriors secured the area and prepared for the journey home, Mira felt eyes on her, watching, calculating. She turned, scanning the tree line, but saw nothing, just shadows and morning mist. Still, the feeling persisted, the sense that something or someone had witnessed what she'd done, had seen her combine resurrection magic with a mate bond, had watched her burn out her powers in an act that should have been impossible, had taken notice. The journey back to the Crystal Palace took 3 days. Sarah rode with Mira, chattering constantly about everything and nothing, seemingly unbothered by her near-death experience. Children were resilient that way. Darius rode close, his eyes frequently finding Mira's, checking on her, making sure she was real, alive, his. When they finally arrived home, the court was in chaos. Beta Garrett had been arrested, though he swore he'd known nothing of his mate's betrayal. Cordelia had vanished, fled into the wilderness, but Darius had sent hunters after her. She wouldn't stay free for long. That night, after Sarah was tucked safely into bed with extra guards at her door, Darius brought Mira to his private chambers. I should probably observe some kind of courtship period, he said, pouring them both wine. Take things slowly. Let the court adjust to the idea of a rogue becoming queen. Probably, Mira agreed, accepting the glass. But I'm not going to. He set his wine aside and pulled her close. I've wasted enough time on duty and politics and doing what's expected. You're my mate, Mira. The bond is complete, whether or not we've formalized it, and I'll be damned if I wait another day to claim you properly. I'm not much of a prize anymore. She touched her chest, where the magic used to live. No powers, no special abilities, just ordinary. You're extraordinary. His hands framed her face. With or without magic, you're the bravest, strongest, most infuriating woman I've ever met. You saved my daughter twice over. You stood against Marcus when you could have run. You sacrificed your power to create something that shouldn't even exist. A family bond built on love instead of obligation. He kissed her softly. That's not ordinary. That's miraculous. Tears pricked her eyes. I don't know how to be a queen. Good thing you'll have a king to teach you. He smiled. We'll figure it out together. Everything. The court, the politics, raising Sarah, dealing with whoever was watching us in that forest. You felt that too? I did. And I've had scouts searching the area. They found tracks, signs of observers. Someone was there. Someone powerful enough to mask their scent and avoid detection. His expression turned grim. Your bloodline might be thought extinct, but word will spread about what you did. Other alphas, other packs with an interest in ancient magic. They'll come looking eventually. Then we'll deal with them. Mira leaned into his warmth. Together, together, he agreed. Always together. He kissed her again, deeper this time, and Mira felt the mate bond sing between them. No magic needed, just the pull of soul to soul, heart to heart. She'd spent her whole life running from bonds, from connections, from anything that might trap her. And now, wrapped in the arms of the Alpha King, bound to him and his daughter by magic and love and choice, she'd never felt more free. In the shadows, beyond the palace walls, A figure watched the lights in the royal chambers glow warm and steady. They'd traveled far to witness the impossible, to see if the rumors were true. A moon, blessed, who could resurrect the dead, who could forge bonds that defied the ancient rules, who'd burned out her power in an act of love and sacrifice. She was vulnerable now, ordinary, but the bloodline remained, and bloodlines could be awakened, manipulated, used. The figure smiled, their eyes glowing silver in the darkness. Soon, they whispered to the night. Very soon. Then they melted back into the forest, leaving only footprints that would be gone by morning. And in the palace, unaware of the danger to come, Mira Sterling, healer, mate, and future queen, finally allowed herself to believe in happy endings, at least for tonight. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like, and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily, and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.